The wild Atlantic coast of North Cornwall has always held a powerful fascination. Every summer, thousands head west, drawn by the prospect of sandy beaches, rocky cliffs, and bracing sea air. They come to relax and to play. Even the dolphins seem to know that school is out and the holidays have begun. They arrive by sea, but most of the visitors who make the long trip to the Cornish beaches come by road. Once they came by train. Every weekday, the Atlantic Coast Express left London's Waterloo station at 11 a.m. 5 hours later, it crossed the River Tamar at Launceston, the gateway to the county of Cornwall. Twisting its way through the lush valleys and over the windswept uplands, it finally reached the Atlantic coast at the fishing port of Padstow, over 6 hours and 260 miles from London. Its journey was immortalised by the poet John Betjeman.
Attend the long express from Waterloo that takes us down to Cornwall. Tea time shows the small fields waiting, every blackthorn hedge straining inland before the southwest gale. The emptying train, wind in the ventilators, puffs out of Eglaskerry to Tresmere, through minty meadows, under bearded trees, and hills upon whose sides the clinging farms hold Bible Christians. Can it really be that this same carriage came from Waterloo? On Wadebridge Station, what a breath of sea scented the Camel Valley. Cornish air, soft Cornish rains, and silence after steam.
But in the 1960s, it all came to an end, when the entire North Cornwall railway system was closed down by Dr. Beeching and a government that believed the future lay with roads, not railways. The track was torn up, the stations were sold, and nature began to reclaim the abandoned track bed. The Kenzie Valley, west of Launceston, no longer echoed to the sound of the Atlantic Coast Express, climbing the gradient to Eglaskerry. But then a strange thing happened. Here, on one short stretch of the North Cornwall line, steam has returned. Today the engines are a lot smaller. Their track is less than half the width of the original line, but they are not toys. These machines were built to work hard for a living in the slate quarries of North Wales. Now they keep the steam age alive in Cornwall, hauling trains of holidaymakers once more on the route of the Atlantic Coast Express. This is the Launceston Steam Railway. When the original line was first opened back in the 19th century, it took an army of surveyors, labourers and engineers to build it. But the Launceston Steam Railway was created by just 2 people. In the 1970s, Nigel and Kay Bowman left their careers in teaching and nursing and moved to Cornwall. What they really wanted to do was to build and run their very own railway, and that's exactly what they did, with financial support and more than a little help from their friends.
Kay, when I first met her, had just changed her parents' central heating pump, and I thought, well, this seems quite interesting. And she was a nurse, and she knew that I'd got this dream of moving to Launceston, and said, look, come on, it's no good talking about it, we better go and do it. And so we moved down, we camped in our house, which was incredibly derelict with half the roof missing, and Kay worked nights at Derriford Hospital to bring home enough money to pay the groceries so that we could start building the railway. And I look back on it, I haven't a clue how we did it, but we did get half a mile of track open.
Well, anything on engineering we enjoy and we can do. If you asked us to build a website or do anything of that sort of nature. Count us out. We just don't want modern technology. But yes, putting a new building up, doing drains, water supplies, electricity, and clearing the track, of course.
It all began in 1965 when Nigel visited the Penrhyn Slate Quarry in North Wales and discovered the narrow-gauge locomotive Lillian. She was sitting in a forlorn row of withdrawn steam engines, waiting for the scrap man.
Lillian was there, all very derelict, and I completely fell hook, line and sinker for Lillian, and wrote a letter to the quarry company, and it was a pretty naive letter. And I got a very serious reply and said, Lillian is not in working order, and we're awfully sorry, it's got a copper firebox, which is worth quite a lot of money for scrap, so we'll have to ask as much as £60 for the engine. And I'd almost got £60. My parents said, don't be mad, and I sent them 60 quid and bought Lillian. It didn't half change my life.
The idea of building narrow-gauge railways to serve industry was born in Wales. In the 1860s, the Festiniog Railway was the first line to operate steam locomotives on 2-foot gauge tracks. Today, it is still running, the oldest railway company in the world, and an inspiration to enthusiasts like Nigel and Kay.
At a time when they said steam wouldn't work on the narrow gauge, the Festiniog Railway proved the world wrong, and then the story of the Festiniog was built up from there, of course. It's not just a tourist business, it's a deeply historic location, deeply historic railway. We have many historic things that we have to look after. It is a wonderful setting, and of course it's what makes the railway a success, is that wonderful scenery.
If the Festiniog could earn its living carrying tourists through the Welsh mountains, why not try the same thing in the scenic landscape of another holiday destination, Cornwall? Undaunted by the huge task facing them, Nigel and Kay began to build their dream. Starting at Launceston, they headed west, cutting their way through the jungle of saplings that had invaded the trackbed.
Yeah, we had to go and buy ourselves a chainsaw and get stuck in. Immediately, of course, you think, well, we need some rails. And the first rails that we bought were from a quarry on the coast of Anglesey. And we spent a wonderful summer living on baked beans, tearing up the rails from this quarry using a tractor made out of an Austin 7. Most of them weren't any good, but there's a few in use here and there. And it's always nice to look at them and think, well, I remember you from 40 years ago. But once we started to get established here, the Royal Naval Armaments Depot down at Saltash decided to pension off its narrow gauge railway, which was a very considerable railway. And we got security clearance and managed to get in there with a scrap merchant. He tore up the rails and we bought them from him. And we paid the going rate for the rail, but he was prepared to chuck the sleepers in free.
After months of back-breaking work, they had the track, they had the locomotives to run in it, but they didn't have the coaches for it to pull, so they simply made their own.
What we wanted was a carriage that was fun to ride in, covered roof, open sides, high density, would seat a lot of people. The snag was we hadn't got any money, but a neighbour of my parents, who'd been a caretaker of the local comprehensive school, had purchased the bicycle sheds because he was able to sell the tin sheets at £3 a go to a local pig farmer, and this would fund a dirty weekend in Cork with a woman called Edna. And he was unable to take the bicycle sheds to pieces. Could I attend with what he called the oxoacetylene and remove the corrugated galvanised sheets? And I said, yes, I will, and I did this. And he said, what do I owe you? And there was the remains of a bicycle shed made of wonderful angle iron and box section steel. And I said, well, I'll have the rest. And it's out of that our first carriage is made. So I look at that first carriage, and it's been the bicycle sheds at a failed comprehensive school. And I think, you've seen life, haven't you?
By Christmas 1983, they were ready to open to the public.
We opened Boxing Day '83 with half a mile of track, one engine and one carriage. And it all rolled on from there. We stayed open 7 days a week, more or less from dawn to dusk during the first season. It nearly killed us. We made a very long season of it, I think about 5 or 6 months. But when the season was over, there was quite a reasonable bit of money in the pot, and we thought this has got the basis of a viable business.
In fact, the site has a long history of prosperity.
This building, its walls, are sitting on the foundations of the cloisters of Launceston Priory. It was an Augustinian order, and it was established in about AD 900. It was incredibly wealthy and lasted until Henry VIII put an end to popery. And it was when the railway was being dug in 1886 that they stumbled across the buried remains of the priory. They stripped off the site and they mapped exactly where the priory walls were. Since then, the public have been given unrestricted access, and it's been all but destroyed. A little bit is conserved. Great chunks of it are intact, right underneath this floor that we're sitting on.
As the railway grew, so did the locomotive fleet. Covertcoat arrived in 1984. One of the friends who supported the Bowmans was James Evans. Inspired by Nigel, he bought his own Welsh quarry engine named Felinheli. It also operates at Launceston.
Well, I've known Nigel 40-something years, I suppose, because I read about his exploits in a magazine, I think it was called the Meccano magazine, when he bought Lillian for 60 quid. I could see the advantage of playing trains on Launceston Steam Railway where the public were paying for the track to be maintained. A lot of people can't believe, that the site here hasn't always been a narrow gauge railway place. The track's only been here for 27, 28 years, but it looks as if it's been here for 100 years. Equally, there are plenty of people who come who are mainly holidaymakers who can't believe that you used to be able to get on a train here and go to London every day. There was a through coach from anywhere in North Cornwall to Waterloo Station every day, express.
People can't believe that trains used to run through here at 60 miles an hour. They also get confused because then you say, well, the trains used to go to Waterloo, 5.5 hours from Launceston, and they assume it's narrow gauge that went to London rather than standard gauge.
With the help and encouragement of friends like James Evans, the Bowmans steadily extended their line up the Kenzie Valley into a world far from the noise and pressure of modern life. Only a mile away, the traffic pours down the A30 trunk road into Cornwall. But this is what the motorist misses. Here there is peace and time to think. No roaring traffic, only the music of birdsong, the murmur of the river, and once in a while, the sound of a passing steam locomotive taking another trainload of holidaymakers along the valley.
But the route of the line, out from Launceston to New Mills, is through a really quite attractive east-west valley. It's a very tight little valley, quite narrow, and it's got a mill stream and a river and a railway and a road running along it. The road is very small, it gets a handful of vehicles a day, and the farmland either side is really very attractive. There's mature trees. It's a beautiful place to be. Now, you would think going up and down the same 2.5 miles of track 7 times a day for a summer season of 4 months, it gets boring. There's 2 reasons why it doesn't. One is that steam engines are never boring. They keep you on your toes. The other one is that the valley itself is so beautiful. And perhaps I'm missing out a third one, which is that we do meet some very interesting people who come and have a ride on the railway.
Some of the kids come and say, why aren't we going at 20, 30 miles an hour? And the adults say, no, we don't want to. We want to see the scenery. We want to see the countryside and enjoy it.
Kay and I almost fight to drive the train, because when you're driving the train, you can't be got at. We most definitely don't have that modern cursor mobile phone. Once the train leaves the station, it's us and the trainload of passengers and the engine and the countryside. And I wouldn't have that any other way. It's therapeutic.
And part of the therapy is the aroma.
A lot of people just get hooked on the smell of steam. That's a mixture of coal, steam, hot oil, and it's very evocative, and you hear people say, I remember that. When somebody says how difficult is it to drive a steam engine, I always say it's very easy to drive a steam engine. To drive one well is much more difficult, because it's difficult to stop on a sixpence, as it were, or stop exactly where you want. And it's difficult to balance the steam and the water to do exactly what you want, when you want.
The abandoned track bed continues to Padstow, but Newmill Station marks the end of the running line for the moment. Here, 2.5 miles from Launceston, the engine runs round its train while the passengers stretch their legs or visit the nearby farm park, returning on a later train.
Steam engines aren't very efficient in the way they burn the coal and produce the steam, and a lot of people are saying that coal burning is not a green activity. But what you are encouraging people to do is, even if it's only for a short time, is not to use their motor car and use the train to get to a destination, and possibly then go for a walk, or for the children to go and play in the farm park.
It takes more than coal and water to keep a steam engine running. Any working machine needs to be maintained. But you can't take one of these to the local garage when it's time for a service. So the Bowmans have set up their own heavy engineering workshops and can tackle any repairs that are needed.
Machine tools, good machine tools, were available from a scrap metal dealer in Horsham for £1 a hundredweight, £20 a tonne. Some politician had decided that Britain was not going to be a manufacturing nation, it was going to be a service nation. And factories were closing everywhere, and wonderful machine tools with years and years and years of life were being thrown away. The old machine tools were driven with overhead shafting and flat leather belts, mostly unguarded. So the dangers were more apparent than real. You could see it was dangerous and you didn't go near it. One shaft through lots of belts and gearing would drive umpteen diverse machines. And those were the sort of machines that we were buying for £1 a hundredweight. So there was nothing for it, but we had to hang shafting up in the roofs of our workshops. And we've got a workshop here, which was absolutely ideal.
It takes skill to master these machines, but Nigel and Kay are both experienced engineers and can tackle highly specialised jobs that would defeat many commercial outfits.
It's the engineering we enjoy, and keeping 100-year-old engines in good order, and we don't expect to have one that's not in working order.
Kay is even rebuilding her own locomotive.
Kay, about 12 years ago, bought the most derelict slate quarry engine in North Wales. It's one that I used to go and look at Dorothea Slate Quarry in the Nantley Valley. And it was completely derelict. We used to look at it in the 1960s and wonder if it could be rebuilt. And we rather concluded that it couldn't. And I always think that if somebody with a crystal ball had said, not only will it be restored to working order, but your wife will do it, I wouldn't have believed it. But yes, Kay has rebuilt Dorothea, and she's really now at the final putting together and painting stage.
I was determined that I would do all the engineering if I physically was able to do it. Obviously there's certain things that are a little bit too heavy. But now I was determined it was down to me and only me.
The engine's already been up the line under its own steam, and she's done all the work herself. She doesn't hesitate to ask for advice, but I'm not allowed near it.
It actually is my engine, like Lillian is his engine.
Restoring a steam engine is a very personal affair, and each loco has its own character. Demanding, eccentric, and quite unlike the mass-produced motor car.
You go out to start the car, and it simply says, I'm not going to start, and I'm not going to give you the faintest idea why. You feel that it's out to get you. You don't feel that with a steam engine. You work with it. They are just incredible machines, and they're infinitely repairable. They never wear out. You keep making new bits, and you make the new bits with simple engineering processes and simple materials. But they can never, as long as they're backed up with adequate engineering skills, you can never say a steam engine is worn out or it won't run another year. They'll keep on and on and on. So there's a huge integrity to them.
All the trains on the Launceston line are steam-hauled, which means plenty of atmosphere, but plenty of hard work as well. For Nigel and Kay, the day begins long before the passengers start to arrive. You don't turn a key to start up a steam engine. The process begins with a piece of oily rag and a match.
You don't get instant power. You start work about 3 hours before you want to move. And it's much more like a living thing. And I suppose there's an analogy to getting a team of horses ready to do some work. You have to prepare them and dote on them and fiddle around, and they're totally unforgiving. They're like a sailing boat. You do it wrong and they'll make a fool of you. But it is a living thing. It's hot, it sizzles, it talks to you. I don't like to admit this, but I have quite long conversations with Lillian of an evening. And you think to yourself, this is absolutely ridiculous. Why am I talking to this inanimate object? But Lillian, which is really our main engine here, I've owned her for more than 40 years. And I think I spoke to it from day one, when it was all very derelict, when we rescued it from the quarry. And you do, what's the word, anthropomorphise these things. You start saying, oh, come on, you're in a bit of a bad state, we better get you going again. And it's a very strange thing, and most engineers who are honest will admit to this, not just with steam engines, but all sorts of machines.
Most preserved railways rely on unpaid volunteers to keep them running. But the Launceston Steam Railway is different.
We have no volunteer support here except me. One or two other people who come in and do technical things for Nigel. It's an interesting contrast with, say, the Festiniog Welsh Highland setup, which is the same gauge railway, which is a very busy, very professional commercial operation. And we enjoy having people like Paul Lewin as the general manager up there. He comes down here for a sort of rest cure or busman's holiday, because Launceston Steam Railway is so laid back and such a contrast to the Festiniog.
I have the privilege of being allowed to drive the engines at Launceston, and so I've been involved in their operation. And it's wonderful. They've created an atmosphere there that is one couple's vision of what the railway should be, and that is fantastic. But it is a different kind of operation, and I think it's successful because there is one controlling mind there. And I could also see that it would be very difficult for a volunteer organisation wanting some kind of democracy to work alongside that.
But the Launceston Steam Railway is not a closed shop, and running the trains is a pleasure which can always be shared. These machines have a universal appeal. From the youngest fan of Thomas the Tank Engine to the generation that still remembers the steam age, everybody loves a steam engine.
I look at children gazing at the steam engine in sort of awe, and I can see myself as a toddler. I used to dream of little engines.
They're very much a size that a child can understand. And it's only when you'll get to 12, 13 that you want the ore that you get with the standard gauge engines.
The magic is there, and the magic still works. It works with youngsters who've never seen a steam engine before. And the wails of tears as their parents drag them back to the car and they have to say goodbye to the train. It's quite moving.
A lot of children have never seen coal. A lot of children have never seen a fire. So they, in some ways, don't understand what fire is. But once you open the fire door, they've got a better understanding of the fact that coal and water produce steam, which makes it go.
In today's throwaway society, nothing is expected to survive for more than a few years. But the Launceston collection is a reminder of the days when durability was once an essential part of every good design. And where better to display these machines than in Cornwall?
Cornwall is regarded, I think, by most people as a wonderful misty land of legend and farming and cream teas and what have you. But of course, it did have a tremendous engineering background. Long before George Stephenson produced the rocket, railway locomotives had been built by Richard Trevithick, the great Cornish engineer, a wild man who pioneered the use of high-pressure steam, using materials that really weren't up to the job, but he got away with it. It was the mining and the need to produce mine pumps powered by steam which really established Cornish engineering.
The story of Cornwall's heavy industrial past tends to be ignored by a tourist industry geared to promoting the county as a holiday playground.
We don't see ourselves as a tourist attraction, and perhaps we ought to be a bit more serious about it, but we don't do the standard tourist package. Launceston Steam Railway, you can come and find scruffy corners and rusty bits of metal, as well as some nicely restored stuff. We don't want to sanitise the place. And you know, it's a strange thing, a lot of visitors who come back very regularly say, oh, for goodness sake, don't start tarting it up too much, leave it as it is.
I think that's what a lot of people who come time after time enjoy, is the fact that it's got a relaxed atmosphere. They know they can sit down, smell the flowers, and very often they'll find something else that they didn't see the previous time.
They've recreated a scene, and particularly the little ramp going up into the engine shed, which is always a bit overgrown, and then there'll be the rambling rows up the sign at Launceston there. It really is something quite special. In fact, I'd recommend going there just to sit and drink tea, never mind going for a ride on the train. It is quintessentially English.
We try and have the exhibits running for real. Steam engines turning over, all that sort of thing. And we use the machines for real, and when they break down, we repair them for real. We just try and carry on their lives, not moving slate in the case of the railway engines, but moving holidaymakers instead.
I mean, we are running a Victorian railway here, and we try to keep our Victorian engines as near as possible to their sort of Victorian appearance. I mean, I've got all kinds of relatively high-tech fittings on this engine, but they're all hidden away out of view. So the engine, apart from the couplings and the brake pipes and things, it looks more or less as it did when it came out of the slate quarry.
If people like it, they come back. And we're still here after 24 years, so we must be doing something right.
To the west lies Egloskerry, the next station down the line that once led to Padstow. It remains a long-term goal for the railway, but the task of running the present 2.5-mile line is more than enough for the Bowmans and their small band of helpers.
I think Launceston Steam Railway is at a bit of a crossroads. The track along which the old Atlantic Coast Express used to run, all overgrown, beckons to us beyond New Mills, and the next station is the wonderfully named Egloskerry. Sounds like it should be in Ireland, really, doesn't it? And Egloskerry is another 2 miles away. There's some pretty tricky landowners along there, but it's doable. and we are just starting to look seriously at the possibility of extending the line. It's there as a challenge. Now, I'm afraid that I need a challenge, because if all is going well and Launceston Steam Railway is easy, I'd rather vegetate. A little bit of aggravation, a little bit of needle is not a bad thing.
Rebuilding 2 miles of railway line is certainly a challenge. But as far as the Bowmans are concerned, nothing seems to be impossible. What began as their own private dream has grown into a thriving business. The railway has become part of the town's identity, just as it was in the days before Dr. Beeching took up his axe.
It's their thing, they do it their way, and they have friends involved who understand their way and can work with them.
In the actual day-to-day operation of the trains, there are only probably 6 or 7 of us. We all know exactly how the thing works. So we don't need the kind of systems where you've got hundreds of volunteers.
We want to do everything ourselves and we enjoy doing everything ourselves. There are a few bits that probably we miss because we don't want to play so much with the paperwork and the modern era. We could do it if we wanted to, but we prefer not to.
Launceston Steam Railway exists on a knife edge, really, of are Mr. and Mrs. Bowman getting enough pleasure out of running it?
And as long as they are, the sound of a locomotive whistle will still be heard in the Kenzie Valley, keeping alive the steam age and the memory of the Atlantic Coast Express.
So, if the Lord will, there's a few years of fun yet.